Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Fire Up Michigan. My name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth. Pleased to be joined by my co-host, George Eichhorn. Welcome back, George.
Good to be here, Scott. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And Smoking Jeremy B with all his fingers going in 9 million different directions.
Three-peat. That's all I got to say. Three-peat.
Well, let me give everybody an idea what the agenda is like. Of course, we're talking about the Detroit Lions and the New York Giants. Talk about the Buffalo Bills and the Cleveland Browns playing at Ford Field. And, of course, we have the Thanksgiving game, the Lions and the Buffalo Bills. And last but not least, we have Michigan Wolverines football. So, with that said, all right, Jeremy, give me a recap of the Detroit Lions double digit. And I'm saying double digit this time win 31-18 over the New York Giants. I had not opportunity to watch the game and hand it the Lions. They really were underdogs in this game, but they didn't play like it, and the win definitely shows that. So give me a recap.
The second time this year, we have been a wire-to-wire victory, and this one was more complete than the last. The first one was the Washington Commanders. We let them back in the game. We went to that prevent defense, gave up a bunch of points in the second half, and eked out a win. This time, we kept our foot on their throats. We made sure Saquon Barkley didn't get more than a 5-yard run at any point in the game. 15 carries and 22 yards. When's the last time you heard a stat line like that with a healthy Saquon Barkley? You can't.
Right.
I mean, nobody's held him to 1.5 yards per carry ever. This Lions defense is getting legit at stopping running backs. It started back in Chicago. Even though we gave up a crap ton to Fields, the running backs really didn't beat us. Look at the Dallas Cowboys game. Pollard had a good game, but Zeke didn't, and Zeke's the power back.
Right.
I mean, if you take away the QB yards against prior to the New York game, the Lions defense has actually been 15th against running backs in the league. So that's something to be said for. Yeah. Granted, the best rusher the last 2 games have been the quarterback for both teams. That says a lot. This defense is getting better. They're maintaining their gap assignments on running plays. We were getting gashed by running backs last year. It's not happening this year. There's sure tackling happening. Will Harris and Deshaun Elliott leading the team in tackles. Let's talk about Aiden Hutchinson. He has just as many interceptions as Sauce Gardner now that they say is the leader for Defensive Rookie of the Year. But what doesn't Sauce have? 5.5 sacks, 36.5 pressures. I think it's a Defensive Rookie of the Year candidate that should be moving up now.
You know what I was amazed to is when Hutchinson embraces Dan Campbell. You know darn well that Dan Campbell really loves this kid anyways. Number one, let's go back to the draft when it took the Lions all about a minute and a half to get that selection up there, much to the dismay of Roger Goodell, wanted them to take a while so they can talk about the Lions. No, just get it over with and just get our man and be done with it. NFL didn't like it. Meanwhile, Aiden Hutchinson, to me, when you talk about the Lions bringing in their own people under this regime of Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell, this is what they're trying to do. And I keep going back to what you say when they got rid of T.J. Hawkinson, and they've won 3 in a row without the guy there. They really have. So they're finding
and ways. The tight ends are doing everything he wasn't doing. They're catching the balls that come to them. They're blocking in the run game. Right. Did you see that block that James Mitchell laid out on that guy? Yeah. And that wasn't just anybody. That was Dexter Lawrence.
Right.
Yeah.
The guy everybody said we had to worry about.
Well,
how many times did they sack Goff where it didn't commit a penalty?
Tell me. 0.
Right. 0 sacks. How many pressures? Maybe 8 for an entire game. That's huge. That's the number 1 rushing defense in the league. And we held them to 8 pressures and 0 sacks.
Pretty impressive. Now Jameson Williams.
Back practicing today, boys. He started the 21-day clock. What did I say a month ago when you guys asked me? I said it'll probably be the Jags or the Minnesota game right after Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
What's it looking like?
Yeah, no, you're right. Well, again, that's another one of you talk about a trade within the division, how the Vikings trade with the Lions, and the Lions knew the upside of this guy. All he had to do was weather through the first 12 weeks.
And I personally think that draft card for Hutchinson was turned in faster than that. It's and the guys at the desk that take it before they give it to Goodell said, "We can't turn this in yet.
Yeah.
We just can't. Come on, guys, we can't do this."
Well, I mean, think about the Lions had 3 rushing touchdowns as well. I mean, that was pretty impressive alone. So
4,
including
Swift had
3 by
one.
Williams, and Swift had one.
Williams leads the league now in rushing touchdowns. That's incredible.
Yeah, it is.
And DeAndre showing every day he doesn't belong in this lineup. Swift. The sooner
how long have I been saying it?
Trade him, the better off they'll be.
How long have I said it?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Don't worry.
I said availability is the best ability, and he's not available 100% of the time, and he hasn't shown that he's that good when he's available now. Yes, he's had his flashes. He's a good player. Don't get me wrong. He has those flashes where it's like, wow, he looks like he could be almost as good as one of our legends, and I refuse to say the name because I don't like making the comparison.
Right.
Don't.
I said, but then he has those games where it's a snoozer.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, even when he's healthy, he has snoozer games.
You can't take off in the NFL. You can't take a week off. And that's what's happening with DeAndre Swift.
And everybody said, what happened? What happened to Rodriguez? I said, he just came off of an injury. He didn't even practice for 2 weeks. Give the kid a break. He's a rookie. He's going to make mistakes. Right. He had a bad game. It's going to happen. I mean, if with a rookie, you expect it to happen. You don't expect it with a 3-year guy that's supposed to be developed and doing what he's supposed to do.
Talk about development. How about Kirby Joseph?
Man, I love
really coming on strong.
Well, they try to pass to his area. Forget it, man. Well,
you're asking for trouble.
In the draft, I said he was one of my sleeper picks that I wanted. It was either him or that Nick Cross of Maryland, but Nick Cross went way ahead of schedule. And what has he done?
I don't know. You tell me.
He hasn't even sniffed the starting squad yet. That being said, Kirby Joseph, the reason why I liked him, I said the kid's a ball hawk. He used to be a wide receiver. He said it in his interview. It helps me to jump routes and get interceptions because I kind of know what the wide receiver is going to do when they get to me. So he anticipates it.
Yeah, good anticipation. Exactly.
And he showed it.
Yeah.
And he showed it. So he's got 2 forced fumbles and 3 interceptions. Mm-hmm. Why isn't he in Defensive Rookie of the Year mentioning?
There you go. There's another one.
All right. Well, before we carry that thought further, Fire Up Michigan can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcast. So if you're in your car, you're on the subway, you're on a bus, wherever, you can always find us, the audio version of the broadcast. And of course, here we are on the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. Once again, this is Fire Up Michigan, and I'm pleased to be joined by George Eichhorn and Smoking Jeremy Walreich. So my regular Monday crew, Dom DeRubis, wasn't able to make it on, but we look forward to having him back. He got tied up in some difficult Michigan traffic, but Dom to me is definitely a guy that we really enjoy his candor on the podcast. So wherever you're at, just be careful, and we'll look forward. Hopefully the Lions will pull out another win on Thanksgiving so you can talk about another win. So any closing thoughts about the Lions and the Giants game, George?
Well, I mean, let's face the facts. I mean, nobody gave the Lions much of a chance. I shouldn't really say that.
I did.
There were two out of the 4 scribes at the Free Press and at the News. It did split 50-50. The guys that cover the teams and the columnists. And of course, you, Jeremy, you gave them a chance, but I didn't give them a chance. I didn't think they were going to win. I'm very impressed. 3 wins in a row. You saw the raw emotion from Coach Dan Campbell in the locker room. And of course, now we're getting it every week, for every win, of course, not every loss, but for every win. And he's just ringing with emotion, his voice and his rah-rah attitude. This is working. These players believe in him.
It's
they
infectious.
Believe in Campbell. They bought into Campbell, and it's showing on the field. They want to win for this guy. They want to win for the city. They want to win for Detroit, and the Lions are doing just that. 3 in a row. Guys, it's been 5 years since we could say that. They won 3 games in a row.
It's been 2 years since they won back-to-back road games. Do you remember what 2 road games those were?
No, help me out.
That was the Atlanta Falcons and the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Ah, yes.
Well, we've got a viewer, Beth Truesdale Greenberg. Says, hi, Beth from Alpharetta, Georgia.
Good to have you, Beth.
Howdy, Beth.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Beth. We appreciate it. Miami Dolphins logo, no problem. We do a lot of stuff with the Dolphins as well. So, obviously,
I love the Dolphins. They're in the AFC, and we don't play them very often.
Yeah, well, they beat us for the game this year.
Yeah, it was still a pretty good football game, that's for sure. So, yeah, the reality is I wasn't sure what to expect out of the Lions, but I'll tell you what, they, to me, are starting to get better, and teams are starting to take notice, and the national media is starting to take notice of them as well. So
they're making good progress, exactly.
Yeah, they are. I mean, you can see one about the rah-rah business with Dan Campbell, but when you have a coach that they'll definitely go ahead and go through the wall with, and that says a whole lot about Campbell himself. So more power to them. We'll see if they can beat the Buffalo Bills. And let's
I don't want to throw up in my mouth a little bit, but I got to say that an actual Packer fan told me that he thinks Campbell is the right guy because it looks like the players want to run through walls for him.
Right.
That's what Scott said. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Let's transition over to the Buffalo Bills while we have an opportunity. Ford Field went from a holiday fair and was invaded by the Buffalo Bills and their mafia in a 31-23 win over the Cleveland Browns. Hey, you know what? I will say one thing about Bills Mafia. I hear they're one of the best fan bases out there for sure.
And they travel well.
Yeah, they do travel well. And the irony is, and I'll get to it in a moment, how the Bills are going to be playing a pair of games at Ford Field inside of a week's time is unbelievable. But we'll just stick with the fact that they ended up beating the Cleveland Browns in front of 56,000, 60,000 people there.
56.
What was it?
56,632.
Yeah, for some strange reason, I don't know why they didn't sell more tickets, but they capped it off at 56,000. I don't know why. But hats off to the Detroit crew. The NFL, I didn't know this, guys, but the NFL calls the Lions every week about the availability of Ford Field. That's the kind of respect Sheila and Martha have at the NFL office.
And Rod Wood.
And
Rod Wood.
And so now what happens is if there is any chance of any kind of weather-related or other-related movement of a game, they call Detroit first because they know the Lions can pull it off. And Scott, you made a good point. You referred to a carnival. Well, that was a huge fundraiser on Friday night. It was called the Hobnobble Gobble, which is a benefit for the Detroit Parade. That's a huge fundraiser held every year on the Friday before Thanksgiving. So those guys had to work, and Rod Wood put the word out. They had over 100 members of the Lions family, employees that even volunteered to turn that stadium into a football stadium practically overnight. They had to work all night long on Friday night to get the field and everything ready for the NFL game. So I just wanted to give a shout out to all the Detroit Lions employees and family members and friends and workers that helped do that and turn that stadium around. And you're right, Scott, the Buffalo media was here, the Mafia, and the Buffalo media as well. Cleveland Browns, of course, had a number of fans here too as well.
Yeah, you know what my feeling is the reason why they capped it at probably 56,000. I don't know if they had enough employees that probably could have fielded a lot more on short notice.
Well, another thing, Scott, I thought about, and Jeremy, is maybe all those suite holders, they probably didn't sell those suites because those are private suites that the companies own, and you wouldn't want them to wreak havoc in your suite. So I'm thinking maybe a lot of the suites were not sold.
Not only that, the reason why they cap it at 56,632, if you look at the new laws for NFL games, it has to be 66% of the capacity of Ford Field. That is exactly 66%. So it makes it enough that it gets aired.
Well, new information.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, okay, no matter how we try to figure the dynamics of the thing out, and I'm not going to try to do it. More power to the Bills Mafia for working to help the Buffalo Bills players get dug out of that mess.
Did you see what they did for Sam Martin?
No.
What?
Okay, it took him 8 hours to find his truck, and not only did they do that, but they sat there and snowblowed and shoveled all night long so he could drive out to get to the game.
I'm telling you, I've heard some incredible things about Bills Mafia. I mean, I'm sure every fan base is passionate, but man, everything I've heard about Bills Mafia, more power to those people.
They travel well. They take care of their team. There was one time where somebody lived in a neighborhood where the power went out. So the Bills Mafia people brought food to that neighborhood for all those people, including the players that lived in that neighborhood one time.
Nice.
They're just a different breed.
They are.
Yeah,
and I'll tell you what, don't piss them off if you're a fan of an opposing team. Yeah, it's not as bad as Philly. It's not as bad as Oakland, but it isn't good.
Wasn't there a quarterback that they helped out one time? God, I'm trying to remember who it
Flutie.
was. Yeah, that's it, Doug Flutie.
77 inches of snow at the Bills home stadium.
I'm sorry, George. There was another quarterback that they helped out as well and donated to.
They mentioned that right at the beginning of the Fox pregame show that the snow was still falling, and that while they were practicing in Ford Field, there was 77 inches of snow in the stadium while they were practicing in the dome stadium of Ford Field.
Yeah. Detroit came to the rescue again.
When's the last time they did it? Minnesota.
I'm trying to remember that quarterback that they helped out. Or was it a hospital wing or something? I don't know. It'll probably come back. But nevertheless, whatever the thing is, to me, I know the Bills Mafia, they help a lot of different charitable causes, albeit I'm having a blank on this. It doesn't matter. But they did.
Flutie.
Well, they had the Flutie flakes. I remember that.
No. I mean, I think it was Flutie that was in the hospital at the time because he got hurt after a game or something like that.
Okay, but I don't think it was. That might have been another one, but not the one I'm thinking about. It doesn't matter. Hopefully, by the end of the show, it'll probably come back to me at all. I'm just trying to remember because it was. Now it'll drive me nuts. That doesn't matter. Well, if it comes up, fine, or I'll put it in the chat, or I'll put it on social media.
Yeah.
But anyways, more power to them, and I'm glad that that Battle of Lake Erie took place in the Great Lakes. What a job for sure. All right, so let's stay on to the Buffalo theme, shall we? Detroit hosts Buffalo on Thanksgiving at noon. Two franchises have always had a great working relationship. This dates back to former Bills owner Ralph Wilson, a Detroit native, and obviously he lived in Detroit despite owning the Bills. And I'll never forget the time when I had an opportunity to interview Jack Kemp over at Super Bowl 39. Unbelievable. So, think about it. Metro Detroit will have a chance to see the Buffalo Bills not once, but twice in a short period of time. George, why don't you take it from there?
Well, and as far as an advantage goes, I mean, a lot of my friends were saying, why aren't they staying there all week? And I says, no, they have to go back after the game. And they were questioning me why. And I says, well, probably the league wanted them to go back too, but they also wanted to go back to see their families. Come on. They just went through one of the worst autumn snowstorm in Buffalo history, perhaps the whole state of New York's history. All I'm saying is that there's a certain comfort level, though. Now, guys, don't diss this. The fact that they were able to use, and they used the visitors' locker room, by the way, not the Detroit home locker room. They were able to get a little bit of comfort level at the stadium themselves. Okay, now what is that worth? I don't know. It could be worth 3 points. It could be worth no points. It could be worth a touchdown. I don't know. I'm not trying to give points out. But I'm just saying for Buffalo, there is a little bit of an advantage. At least they've been in Ford Field. A lot of those players have never been in there their whole life because we don't play them once every, 6 years at home? Something like that.
That was the first time Josh Allen's been there.
Yeah. Well, there's some guys, obviously, that have been traded over the years and have played there before. But all I'm saying is, for Buffalo, it was a lot of work and a lot of extra this and that. But, they now have a little bit more of a comfort level at Ford Field, if that's worth anything. They're a good team. It's going to be a good game. No question about it. It's talk about a good matchup now. Finally, CBS has got the game this year, Jim Nantz. and they got a good
Tony
one.
Romo.
They got 3 good games that game. In fact, Thanksgiving. But yeah, Tony Romo and Jim Nantz will be here, CBS, and they did the game Sunday too. The Cleveland game.
Right. I am so happy that Jim Nantz and Tony Romo gets to call a Detroit Lions game, a home game. And the reason why I say that is I love the way they call the game. I love the way what Tony Romo does. I love the fact that he can call the plays correct before they happen for each team at an 80% clip. That's almost unheard of.
All right, you know what? This is bothering me, but now I figured it out. The Buffalo Bills fans donated $442,000. I think it was to Andy Dalton. I think the Bengals helped them get into the playoffs.
Oh yeah, that I do remember this. Yeah.
Andy Dalton.
That's why it bothered me as much as it did. I'm not letting this show go without being able to come up with. So
yeah, think about this. They gave the beige water pistol a 442,000 bonus.
Yeah, there you go. So this is how incredible, to show you how incredible this organization really is. They donated $442,000, by thanking Andy Dalton, and that was just one situation. I'm going over a few more that they did. Okay, because this is just inspiring, especially during Thanksgiving. They've also donated to the Tua Foundation as well. So I think that was pretty interesting. So, when you just talk about the Bills Mafia, what these people do, the Bills fans raised $400,000 to help Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson's charity. So, I mean, this to me is just unbelievable. You talk, and then, of course, now Sean McDermott fitting that former Bills QB, Ryan Fitzpatrick, celebrated as well. So I mean, this is just a trend with these people that to me is just remarkable. Bills Mafia classy, Tua Tagovailoa after Dolphins QB injury. And yet, meanwhile, we had a football game because of the nonstop efforts so that it could get them out. That's why I had to dig this up while you guys were conversing.
Sure.
Especially the Dalton one. Yeah. I know about the Flutie one years ago, but when Andy Dalton, I think the Bills snapped a long playoff now.
Do you know how they came up with that number?
Why is that?
At the time, that was his rookie paycheck per game.
Oh,
is that what it was?
Yeah.
Oh. Scott, you talk about it. It all started with Ralph Wilson, and you talk about a class man, a class owner. I'm glad you mentioned that, Scott, early on. Yeah, from Detroit. Finally, the last couple of years ago, they inducted him into the Michigan Sports Hall of Fame.
Oh, really?
I fought for him for a long time, and so did Jerry Green of the Detroit News. We wanted him in that Michigan Sports Hall of Fame, and all we heard was, oh, his body of work is in Buffalo. Well, that's a bunch of BS because he's donated to so many Detroit and Michigan charities and his foundation, the Ralph C. Wilson Foundation. So anyways, I'm glad you mentioned him, Scott, early on.
Well, I actually met him at the Super Bowl in Tampa. I believe it was 39, Mr. Wilson. And I refused to call him Ralph. I didn't do it. I wouldn't do it because in my opinion, I wanted to call him Mr. Wilson because I felt he deserved that kind of Mr. respect.
Yes. Yeah. And that's a class organization. I mean, I know they've not won a Super Bowl, but they've been there, 4 times?
Right.
And they're trying to get back there this year, of course. It's going to be a good game. Like I said earlier, both teams, short rest, short preparation. I didn't look at the injury report. I don't know if you did, Smoke and Jeremy. Did we get any bad injuries from either team, Buffalo and Detroit?
The one that I think is going to hurt us the most is Okuda's in concussion protocol and cannot play this week.
That's right.
Kirby had a minor injury, but it looks like he's okay. I'm waiting to see the practice reports before I say anything more. I just was super excited because I knew before 9 a.m. that Jamison Williams was practicing again.
Yes, I heard that.
You mentioned something about yesterday's game that I noticed as I was watching the highlights. Sean McDermott, to me, is one of the classiest young coaches. I like what Sean McVay did with the Rams last year. It's not, it's unfortunate the Rams are struggling this year, but we won't get into that conversation except for another night.
Wait, Stefan, I'm going to get into one thing. The Rams pick is a top 5 pick, and the Lions
Yeah,
pick is in the
I knew you were
teens.
going there.
The
Okay.
Rams,
Yeah, I know. It
Yeah, I
could get a
know.
lot worse.
you know,
I
I
wanna stay
predicted
on
this in the
point, Jeremy.
preseason.
I want to stay on point.
I'm
Okay.
on point. I'm just
But the
saying.
point that I want to stay on
on
is when
point.
Sean McDermott was, Stephon Diggs is a little frustrated. He goes up to McDermott. McDermott has his arms around the guy, and don't worry, everything will be all right. And what do you think happened shortly thereafter? Caught a touchdown.
Yep.
Yeah, but you're right. Well, everybody in Detroit knows that Brad Holmes fleeced the Rams, and now with the
And the
Rams
Vikings
that
twice.
they can indeed end up with an Brad Holmes. Let me tell you, when it's all said and done, and based on what I'm seeing with Brad Holmes, he's going to fleece a lot of people before it's all said and done. So it doesn't really matter.
I don't know why anybody hasn't done that little thug life thing that they do for everybody when they steal from somebody, like when the raccoon steals the dog food and stuff like that, and have the shades go across, and then you hear that thug song from Snoop Dogg start to play, and it's Brad Holmes, and it shows Rams and Vikings above his head.
Well, I'll tell you one thing: the Lions aren't used to fleecing people with Brad Holmes in charge. He's fleecing a lot, and this guy's just getting started. I don't think
What's the only fleece trade? The only
this.
trade that I consider a fleece that Quinn did. Do you know what that was?
What?
When we got Snacks Harrison and what it meant to the 2018 team.
Yeah, but he didn't last too long.
No, but for what it did for that team, for the defense,
I'll grant you that.
Because as soon as he came on, Jared Davis looked like a valid middle linebacker.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, nevertheless, all I can tell you, Brad Holmes will be the Fords haven't gotten it right for a lot of years, but I'll tell you what, they got it right with Brad Holmes. That's for sure.
Well, I've known Brad Holmes, his uncle, for a long time. His name is Luther Bradley. And Luther Bradley and I worked together at Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. I'll tell you what, you talk about class individuals, Luther Bradley, he's right at the top of my list. So it did not surprise me at all that Brad Holmes is related. That's his Brad's uncle. And so the kudos to the Bradley family and to the Holmes. It's a great connection to the old Detroit Lions, is what I'm saying, to have Luther Bradley in the picture too. And I know Brad really admires his uncle.
All right, so awesome. Let's get into some predictions for Thanksgiving. George, give me your predictions about the Lions and Buffalo.
Well, if you would have asked me the last several weeks on this show, I would have said probably Detroit would not have had a good chance. But you know what? I can't go against them. Come on. Lions 23, Buffalo 20.
All right, Jeremy.
2 weeks in a row, we scored 31 points, right?
Right.
That puts us back over 30 points average in scoring for the year.
Or close to, yeah.
Or close to. We're going to buck that trend. Final score, 34-25.
I like that. It's not bad.
34-25.
Which team?
Lions win.
Well, you know what? I have to stick with my lucky number 33. So I'll do that. 33 is my lucky number. Detroit 33, Buffalo 23. Threes are wild. So there you go. All right. One more piece of business here to take care of tonight. Obviously, the Michigan Wolverines won an ugly one over Illinois 19-17. J.J. McCarthy somehow, some way has to figure out what the passing game is all about, because it was non-existent. And Michigan escaped with the win, but nevertheless, they are 11-0. Now, obviously, I told you, if J.J. McCarthy doesn't have a passing game in Ohio State, they're going to get hammered. So with that said, okay, they'll also need Blake Corum to play like the Heisman Trophy candidate that he is going to win. So, rather than getting into a long, drawn-out type of thing, George, give me your assessment of the Michigan-Ohio State game.
Well, I think that several aspects of Michigan are a bit stronger than they were even a year ago when they beat Ohio State. But the fact of the matter is they haven't won down there since what, year 2000 or something like that. It's been
since Brady Hoke.
Since Brady Hoke, yeah. And I agree with you, Scott. I mean, I'm disappointed. I thought JJ would be a little bit crisper,
Devin Weatherspoon's a beast.
Pinpoint on his passing. That's not there. Yeah, he's had a few drops. I mean, it's not all on him, but they have to be more than one dimensional against the Buckeyes in order to win this game. That being said, I mean, they have the best running attack, but Blake seems to be okay, supposedly, after being shaken up last week. I don't know about his running mate there, if he's going to be
Edwards.
Donovan Edwards, to be able to play. It's going to be a close game, possibly. Turnovers again is going to be huge. I mean, the team that turns the ball over is going to lose. We know that. That goes without saying in a big game like that. Michigan's got to keep it close the first half. It's not going to be like these other games where they run away with the game in the second half. The Michigan team has to stay within 7 points at halftime. I still don't think it's going to be a good day for Michigan. I just don't feel it's going to happen.
So give me your prediction.
Well, I'm going to go Ohio State. You talk about 30. They're going to have at least 35 points. I'll say Ohio State 35 and Michigan 20.
Okay, Jeremy.
We have the better rushing attack. So far, statistically, we have the better scoring defense. Ohio State's been giving up points in buckets to teams that didn't score against Michigan. I still think it's going to be closer than everybody thinks. I think it's going to come down to the field goal kickers, and I trust Moody way more than that guy in the scarlet and gray. I mean, Moody's probably the second best kicker in the whole NCAA. If everything goes right, Michigan wins 31-24. If it goes bad, and it'll be really bad, it's not even going to be close if it's bad. We'll lose like 42-28.
Yeah. So which prediction are you going to stick with?
Which one?
No. I gave my best case, worst case. That's what I do with my writing. I always do best case, worst case. If Michigan wins, it'll be close. If Michigan loses, it'll be bad.
So what's your score for the Ohio State win?
If Ohio State wins, it's 42-24. If Michigan wins, it's 31-24.
Okay. You know what? I'm going to lead with my heart on this one anyways. I don't even care. I'll live with it. Michigan right now is an underdog anyways. Nobody expects anything out of them to begin with. But I'm going to go the Wolverines 24-21.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, you guys are more optimistic than I am.
I am.
Hey, but I gave worst case, best case. Did I not?
I didn't give worst best.
Because
I gave worst.
And the reason why I do that is because we've seen it where everything goes right and I'm right. And we've seen it where it goes wrong and I'm still right. It just doesn't.
Well, the only reason why I can't give Michigan much more than that because J.J. McCarthy hasn't shown me anything in the passing attack.
But that running game has.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. That's why they're good for 3 touchdowns. They'll be good for 3 touchdowns, and I'll follow your lead on the field goal because of
Moody.
Jake Moody is good for a field goal, but I say 24-21, and I'll live with these circumstances.
Moody was the Big Ten Special Teams Player of the Week. He won the Lou Groza Award last year for the best kicker, and he could win it again this year. You're right, guys. If it comes down to the kicking game, Michigan's got it. I mean, this kid's got nerves of steel.
Harbaugh, if you're watching, take the points.
Yeah, I look at it as this, okay? Michigan is the underdog in Ohio. They're on house money. Nobody's expecting them to do anything anyhow. So they can afford to go in there and play loose.
Nobody expected Michigan to win last year at home.
That's true.
Well,
good point. Well, no, I don't think they did.
This defense is better than last year's defense.
Yes. Yeah. That's true.
And what won it last year? Defense. Mazzie Smith. He is a beast in the middle of that line. He's disrupting centers and guards left and right. He's getting pressures. That's allowing the DNs and the linebackers to get that pressure. They are containing running quarterbacks in our division like nobody's business. That's why I'm not scared if they get to the playoffs.
Well, again, the main thing is you got Ronnie Bell and Blake Corum, though, has to be 100%. Otherwise, what you're saying, Jeremy, worst case, best case. Again, if I want to play that route, then yeah, if Blake Corum doesn't play those capabilities and the running backs, what do you have? What, Donnie Edwards? Is that he the other one too?
Donovan Edwards.
Donovan Edwards, and then Ronnie Bell.
Donovan's
if I'm going to go in a worst case scenario, I might as well I'll just say I'll go ahead and play the Jeremy card. Then I'll definitely go ahead and say Ohio State 38-24 at that point. Provide if things don't work like we think they would. I mean, I'm more toward the 24-21, but you go as far as where your running attack, the strength of your offense is. But JJ McCarthy, has to be able to throw the football. That's where Cade McNown did throw the football. So it's interesting how you have both quarterbacks. But I think JJ McCarthy, to me, is a fine quarterback. I like his dual threat capabilities. But at least Harbaugh got the monkey off his back and beat Ohio State a year ago.
I do too. I think JJ brings a lot to the table, Scott. You're right. He's not as advanced in the passing game right now, but they really made the right choice with that. And
look at who they lost.
I know.
At wide receiver. Wide receiver alone.
Well, even that, but the defense. That's
Nico Collins.
That's why he calls this a no-name defense.
Yeah, with
Hutchinson.
Hutchinson on Ojabo. And everybody's like, man, Ojabo was good all year. I said, no, go back and look. Hutchinson was at DN and he was barely getting sacks for the first 6 games, and Ojabo had none. They moved them both to outside linebacker and promoted the second string defensive ends to the D line. All of a sudden, Hutch had a 6-sack game and Ojabo had 3.
Yeah.
Well, the one thing that we can't overlook compared to a year ago, though, is Jim Harbaugh flirted with the Minnesota Vikings, so you didn't know how that was going to play out.
Yeah.
I did.
He's fortunate that Ward Manuel let him come back. Gaddis leaves Michigan to come to Miami. I think Josh is a good coach. Right now, the Hurricanes, to me, as it stands right now, they're just in transition under Mario Cristobal. I think they're going to be fine down the road. I don't think Mario, but Josh Gaddis is a heck of a coach. So
yes,
had a lot of things going on, and I think Miami will be fine next year. You lose Josh Gaddis, and you lose the other defensive guy that goes back to John Harbaugh with the Baltimore Ravens.
Right.
So
you're right, Scott. Do you think about the turmoil last summer that was going on around Michigan Stadium? Boy, oh boy, the team didn't let that bother them at all.
Plus, they've also had a very poor strength of schedule, which hasn't helped them out either. So
right.
So I mean, and then you look at the college football playoff situation. Well, Tennessee gets smoked by South Carolina, so I didn't think they were in danger of falling out there. Of course, now USC.
And my condolences to the Heisman race for Hendon Hooker because he has a blown ACL.
Right.
Yeah. Well, if you're going to go condolences, we didn't have a chance to do this a week ago. How about my condolences to those folks out at the University of Virginia with those 3 players lost and the tragedy?
Oh, we did do that. We did do that. We did talk about that.
Did we? Well, we'll talk about it again.
Yeah. I mean, that's
them.
We said thoughts and prayers are not enough.
Well, that's true. Well, thoughts and prayers still aren't enough, and I still wish them well out in Virginia. But yeah, no. When we'll go back to the turmoil that took place with Michigan. They're 11-0, knocking on the door, and whether they get to the college football playoff or not, they're going to get to a marquee bowl game anyway. So it doesn't.
Oh, they'll go to the Rose Bowl. If USC doesn't win, USC will take Michigan's spot in the Final Four.
What if LSU beats Georgia in the SEC championship?
It gets interesting.
Well, it gets interesting, yeah. Well,
because that's going to leave the door open for it to be one SEC team, one Pac-12 team, and 2 Big Ten teams.
Depends on how close this game is.
If it's close,
yeah. But
Because if Michigan wins a close one, they'll both get in. Watch.
That's true. No, I'll give you that one, Jeremy, for sure. I will definitely give you that one for sure.
Yeah.
If we get blowed out, there's no chance Michigan
you're right.
get a good bowl game. They'll probably be the alternate for the Rose Bowl at that point.
Yeah, I think you're spot, Jeremy. I think you're spot on with both. I can tell you one thing though.
They're going to the Rose Bowl, even if they lose, they're going because you got a weak other division in the Big Ten. So I'll
give you one guarantee that if LSU does get to the college football playoff, Brian Kelly won't be working on his Southern accent anymore. He'll be trying to use the general American dialect out in Louisiana.
Wouldn't that be hilarious if LSU
they've rallied from a bad start, LSU,
and let them try to keep Georgia in the top 4 then?
I don't know. Well, I mean, for whatever it's worth, next month, now that I think about it, Mike Brodsky, who is actually on the committee with the Cheez-It Bowl and the Citrus Bowl, and he's going to be on a few shows next month here. I met Mike out in Jacksonville. We became good friends, and we do a lot of projects together. He actually wrote a book on Leon Searcy, which is pretty neat, former Miami Hurricane and Jacksonville Jaguar. He'll be coming on a future edition. Leon Searcy will be on a future edition of Inside the Pigskin. So we're actually planning to bring him on December 1st. Cool. But Jeremy, there's a pretty good chance you might end up with meeting Mike. But, again, because we're going to do a bowl game show actually on December the 8th after the pairings are announced. So I'm glad, Jeremy, I'm kind of glad you brought a lot of that stuff up. I think you're helping me promote it a little bit in advance for sure. So good points by both of y'all tonight. It really is. And you know what? As much as I hate to keep talking about the Virginia thing, it just bothers me because unfortunately I brought it up again because of what took place out in New Mexico State regarding that basketball player. I don't know if you heard about that. It's just we're seeing too much of this stuff, and hopefully at some point we don't see it anymore.
I kind of only watch sports news anymore because I'm sick of mainstream media.
Yeah, I'm with you all the way. Unfortunately, in the business that we're in, I have to stay on top of it, whether I like it or I don't. But
I know.
But meanwhile, hey, listen, tonight it's been a lot of fun talking about the Buffalo Bills home and home away from home. If we want to call them home away from home, Ford Field is what they end up getting between winning against the Browns, obviously, on Sunday, and then getting the Lions again on Thursday. And talking about Ralph Wilson, a guy who doesn't get a lot of opportunities to bring him up. And, of course, William Clay Ford had a good working relationship for him for a lot of years. And of course, here we are, Michigan and Ohio State. We try to point out whatever scenarios are there. So all in all, I think we have any final thoughts, George, about tonight's broadcast?
No, I've been a lot of fun talking to you guys and our audience here. I'm sure has enjoyed it as well. And lots of football. It's a great time of year for football, especially with the college and the Thanksgiving holiday coming up with America's favorite tradition, parades, turkey, and football on Thanksgiving Day.
Yeah, I remember going to a parade over on Woodward. It's just phenomenal once.
It's great. It's a great tradition.
What's even been more fun is the amount of Thanksgiving games I did cover. To me, that's just off the charts. Jeremy, some closing thoughts.
When it comes to the Lions versus the New York Giants, they now have a record of 25, 21, and 1 historically versus that team. Are outside the division. New York Giants, welcome to your daddy.
Man, yeah, George, I'm not so sure we can end any stronger than those.
I can't top that one.
No, and you know what? I'm not even going to bother. All right, Jeremy, you got the last word on the facts. So with that said, why don't you let everybody know how you can promote yourself and everything that you do?
All right. I am, of course, a published editorialist for Scott there with the South Florida Tribune under the Motor City Tribune title. I also do my own podcast at Kneecap Biting with Smoking Jeremy B, found at YouTube of the same name. You can also find me, if you see my name underneath that comment there, it says at Smoking Jeremy B on Twitter. You can find me there and all my content. I post as much as I can in there. I talk Lions. I talk NFL football on Wednesdays. I do a post-game show on Let's Talk Sports about the Thursday night football game. I do my Lions Man Cave chat on Friday, and on Sunday mornings through the Sports Empire Network, I do the Sunday morning drive. And whenever they feel like it, they do a little show at 11 p.m. called The Empire at Night. I had fun doing it. I hope they do it again soon.
Well, like I said, we're pleased to have you on our team, Jeremy. To me, you're one of the best additions that we've had all year, and I look forward to doing a lot of unbelievable things with you as time progresses. I want to thank Beth Truesdale Greenberg for joining us tonight, too. Beth, very much appreciate you joining us again. So look forward to seeing you when you come back to Florida. I've known Beth for a long time, dating back to my days here in South Florida. We were study partners, and she's been following our network a lot too, especially considering that.
Gentlemen, I would stay, but I got to get my guests for my show
That's
rounded
okay.
up. You have
All
a
right.
blessed day, and I'm going to tell everybody here the same thing I tell people on my station too, is try every day to be a better person than you were the day before, because that's the only way to make the world a better place.
All right,
Peace, love, and
Jeremy. You're up.
victories.
I'll see you tomorrow night, Jerry.
Happy Thanksgiving, Jeremy.
Happy Thanksgiving.
God bless you.
All right, George, you and I can wrap up the show as we always do anyway. So go out there and promote the book.
There's the book, Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air, featuring Ty Tyson, Ernie Harwell, Bud Lynch, Bruce Martin, Van Patrick, Bob Reynolds, George Blaha, and of course, my co-host here, Mr. Scott Morganroth, and he's featured in the book as well with Muhammad Ali and Jimmy Connors. And the book is available. There's a link on the South Florida Tribune website. I write for the Motor City Tribune, and I also write for the Detroit Monitor. You can reach me at gicorn@yahoo.com. You can reach me at SNG Sports 99 on Twitter. And of course, follow me as well every Monday night here with Scott and Fire Up Michigan. So great having you as our audience. We love this show, and Fire Up Michigan is a great show. And thanks, Scott, for having me on.
Wow, George, you and I have been at this for 43 years, my friend. So
I know.
We've done a lot when it comes to covering events, and I don't think there's a person I'd rather be on this platform than you. I mean, our history is it's a long one. So meanwhile, let me give everybody our information. Go to www.southfloridatribune.com. That is our website. Candy Ebling does a marvelous job putting all the broadcasts up there and so forth. She's the glue that keeps this platform together. If you want to email us, do so at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Please subscribe to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. All you have to do is just go to youtube.com, look for South Florida Tribune, hit the subscribe button, you're good to go. And then you'll be able to see all of our remote broadcasts as well as what we do on streaming and so forth. So if you're interested in what we do, we would really, truly, thankfully appreciate you subscribing. Once again, go to youtube.com and look for South Florida Tribune. Quick subscribe gets it done, and you'll get all the notifications that we have there as well. On Twitter, you can find us South Florida Tribune at Tribune South, and also the Motor City Tribune has also been developed for a lot of our Detroit audience as well. So you definitely get around. South Florida Tribune also has a Facebook page as well. So meanwhile, this concludes the edition of Fire Up Michigan. My name is Scott Morganroth, appropriately named the Motor City Madmouth, along with my longtime co-host George Eichhorn. We hope that you have a really wonderful Thanksgiving. Please be safe out there. Enjoy family, the food, and the football. And we should just be thankful that every day that we're alive is another memory that we have out there with friends, family, and whatnot. I'll leave you folks on this note, okay, that my philosophy in life is to treat life like Morris the cat. Morris had 9 lives. We have to make the most of the one that we have. So go out there and enjoy your family, your friends, and live for the moment, because, unfortunately, we can't. That's the only way I think that you go ahead and do that. And one other thing I should point out is, I want to devote this show to my mom, who actually died 2 years ago, 2 days after Thanksgiving. So, Mom, I love you very much. Rest in peace, and I hope that you have a chance to go out there and you're hearing this up in heaven. So, meanwhile, on behalf of Smoking Jeremy B., George Eichhorn, my name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of Fire Up Michigan. Until the next time, George Eichhorn, we appreciate everything you do. We have a date on the Sports Exchange on Wednesday night. Good night, everybody.
Good night.